Baseball is a game of numbers. It's the one sport that has perfectly captured the abstract and defined it using terms such as OBP, slugging, ERA, whip, and OPS. To the casual fan, these are near meaningless terms that get tossed aside, if for no other reason than they make us think about that calculus course we failed our freshman year of college. Over the course of 30 different teams playing 162 different games and a lifetime of seasons, we come to expect the usual set of numbers. Anywhere from 1 to 5 hits in a game, sprinkle some walks in here or there, the occasional hit by pitch, the rare error. But sometimes something catches our eye because it's completely out of the ordinary. Today we're counting down the oddest stat lines in MLB history, and these are coming up right after this. Ever feel like you have nothing to do at work? Well, Toby Hara had one of those days in 1976. Despite manning shortstop for the Texas Rangers on both ends of a doubleheader, Hara didn't have a single ball hit his way in 18 total innings, the only time that's ever happened in MLB history. Essentially, Hara could have gone out without a glove and been no worse for the wear. There were 25 infield putouts in the 2 games combined, and still the mustachioed Hara was reduced to a spectator by the White Sox lineup. Hara did end up with 4 All-Stars in his career, however, so maybe he wasn't as useless as it seems. You know that big burly dude who played on the Astros that doesn't wear batting gloves and looks like he would punch you in the face if you tried to make him wear gloves? Well, his name is Evan Gattis, and he doesn't look like he stretches a lot of doubles into triples. He looks like an off-duty sanitation worker. Actually, he was legitimately a janitor. I made a video on that. It's an incredible story. Well, he's hit 12 triples in his 6-year career, and somehow 11 of them came in 2015.
1 hour later.
A great success!
That number is a ton for any player, especially considering the AL leader in 2016 was Adam Eaton with 9. This might have been the result of some odd outfield alignments, but either way, it's not easy to pull 270 pounds plus 3 for the beard all the way to third base. Imagine recording 27 straight outs and not being able to say you pitched a perfect game. That was the case for Red Sox pitcher Ernie Shore back in 1917, only he didn't, because he didn't start the game. The guy who did, his name was Babe Ruth, and after he walked the game's first batter, he threw a fastball at the umpire's head and was promptly tossed out from the game, presumably to go eat 30 or 40 or so hot dogs. In stepped Ernie Shore. The one and only base runner was immediately picked off, and Shore retired the next 26 Washington Senators in order. For years, it was dubbed a perfect game until 1991 when it was reclassified as a combined no-hitter between Shore and Ruth. Shore died in 1980, so at least he went to the grave thinking he tossed a perfect game back in 1917. And don't feel too bad. Most guys his age were getting choked with mustard gas in a French ditch at the time. What were you doing at age 15? Asking your parents for rides, sneaking into the liquor cabinet, worrying about who to ask to homecoming? Well, back in 1944, Joe Nuxhall was on the mound for the Cincinnati Reds at the ripe age of, just 15 years old. Because most able-bodied men at the time were fighting in either the Pacific or in Europe, the MLB had a major shortage of talent, so the Reds plucked Nuxhall out of high school and brought him up to pitch a game. And it didn't go so well, as you might imagine. Nuxhall gave up 5 runs in under an inning and got the axe before recording his 3rd out, which left his ERA at 67.5, more than 4 times his age. Not great for a teenager's confidence, but Nuxhall made it back to the show 8 years later and eventually made a couple of All-Star appearances in a career that spanned 16 years, and continuing in the booth for the Reds until he passed away in 2007. There's a stat called a Maddux. That's when a pitcher has a complete game in fewer than 100 pitches. As you could guess, it doesn't happen very often. Over 9 innings, you would have to average 11 pitches per frame to pull it off. Now imagine doing the same thing in just 77 pitches. That's what Greg Maddux was able to accomplish back in July of 1997 against his former team, the Chicago Cubs. Against a lineup that boasted a pre-bleached Sammy Sosa, Mark Grace, Doug Glanville, and Ryan Sandberg, Maddux dominated. Throwing 63 strikes to just 14 balls and scattering 5 hits with a lone run over a full 9 frames, Maddux turned in an outing that would make the pitch count guys explode with self-pleasure. Even with 6 strikeouts and not a single walk, being able to set down 31 batters with a mere 8.5 pitches per inning is hard for the human mind to comprehend. Maddux looked like an accountant and he was nothing but efficient. Not to mention the game only lasted 2 hours and 7 minutes, so maybe Greg Maddux is the solution to baseball's pace of play issue and your W2. The MLB regular season is 162 games long. Occasionally 163 in the case of a tiebreaker, but in 1965 both Ron Santo and Billy Williams played 2 extra games and neither of them were traded, nor were there tiebreakers at the end of the year like when Maury Wills played 165 games in 1962 due to an extra 3-game series at the end. How did this happen that Santo and Williams worked uncompensated overtime? Well, back in the 60s, Wrigley Field didn't have lights, and twice that year games were suspended and declared ties, which were replayed at later dates. Though the tie games were not listed in the standings, each player who participated was given credit for a game played. Cal Ripken is not impressed. When you're on, and Christy Mathewson was most definitely on during the 1905 Fall Classic. While Mathewson's New York Giants defeated the Philadelphia Athletics 4-1, the right-handed pitcher hurled 3 games and tossed 3 shutouts for the Giants. Before Reggie Jackson and putting fluoride in drinking water, Christy Mathewson was the real Mr. October. Unfortunately, Mathewson caught tuberculosis via chemical weapons in World War I, and that was the end of the OG Mr. October. But he was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1936, and he's got himself a record that probably won't be touched ever because pitchers complete games now about as often as a logical debate happens on Twitter. In a league dominated by flame-throwing pitchers, the plucky Jamie Moyer carved himself out a 25-year career in baseball because of his craftiness, control, ability to fool batters, and an arm made out of eucalyptus pigment. Moyer made his debut in 1986 with the Chicago Cubs at age 23, and retired in 2012 as a member of the Colorado Rockies when he was 49 freaking years old. By the time he hung him up, Moyer faced 8.9% of the hitters in MLB history. That's right, Moyer faced batters ranging from Mike Schmidt to Mike Standen. Geez, he does not look like a Mike. The lesson in all of this? Maybe not being able to throw 95 is a blessing, not a curse. Speaking of extreme weakness, William Hobart, whose career stretched from 1876 to 1888, hit 0 home runs in 2,335 at-bats in the big leagues. Nada, zilch, 0. To be fair to Mr. Hobart, who might be one of your great-great-grandparents, he might have had dead arms from tending to his farm between at-bats, or he might have actually lost his arms in the Civil War. Hobart, not to be confused with the serial killer of the same name, hit .208 in a career that saw stops with the Troy Trojans and the New York Metropolitans. And while he wasn't exactly showcasing his power, he did record 32 RBIs in a 69-game season in 1887. It's hard to tell whether his career ended because of ability or because of some widespread pestilence. We know that the one thing Hobart was allergic to was the long ball. Baseball is one game that can be reconstructed by the numbers, but sometimes what's on paper is so strange and unlikely that, like 2 shooting stars hitting each other in midair, you wouldn't believe it if you didn't see it with your own 2 eyes. But whether it's a pitcher hitting the mound before he can legally drive a car, or being old enough to throw a pitch in every administration from Reagan to Obama, baseball loves to give us reminders of how weird the game really is. I hope this video didn't bore you, and if it did, just imagine how Toby Hara felt. If you have the time, please check out my other baseball videos, and of course, get an incredible timepiece from Vincero at 15% off by using my code 5points from the link below. I'm 5 Points Vids, and you made it to the end of this video.